We're here with Joe Lacey, and Mr. Lacey, I talked to you on the phone the other day. I had read last week that you had voted no, or it wasn't last week, a few weeks ago.
2 weeks ago.
Yeah, voted no on the cuts.
Cuts of positions.
And just here to ask you why.
The short answer is it was a policy difference that I had with my colleagues that I thought they could have made the cuts in a different place. When you have to cut that much, so much, that you're talking about hundreds of people, you can't not affect policy. So I thought that the decisions that they made ignored some overall things that they could have cut, and that those things that they could have cut, that they did not cut, were at the expense of education. They had some programs that they were protecting that I didn't think they should have protected. And then I'll say,
yeah, what
they
programs?
are. Basically, the main programs are the choice programs.
Mm-hmm.
And since I've been on the board in 2006, when I have voted to go with choice programs when we had the money. And these are choice programs at the elementary level. Specifically, a boys' school, a girls' school, and an elementary school that has the Montessori program.
Mm-hmm.
These are all, I mean, I like to be able to offer choice, but when it gets to the point where it's too expensive to have specific types of schools, and it's hurting your overall program, then I think you have to cut them. And they mostly cost the district in busing.
Mm-hmm.
Of the Big 8 schools, Dayton buses more than any of them. Our busing costs are higher than any of them. And so really, it's all the other Big 8 schools are more generally focused on a neighborhood school system.
Mm-hmm.
And Dayton is not. Dayton, we bus far more than any other of the Big 8 schools. We need to get back to a neighborhood system, and that would save millions. That would have saved, I think, the cost of just going back to a neighborhood system would save so much on busing that I think we could have saved half the teachers that we got rid of.
If we go back to a purely neighborhood system, how can we ensure that good teachers are distributed equally in all neighborhoods?
I think
I've heard, because that's one of the complaints I've heard, and it sounds like it was a pretty valid one. You know, back in the old days, used to get crap teachers in the poor, parts of town, and
I think that we have that already. I have seen studies of the Big 8. They do studies that really pretty much go over the Big 8 districts. And I don't have that study at the top of my head, but there was actually a study done of the Big 8 districts that really studied, it came to the conclusion that the schools in the more affluent districts, they had teachers, they were more likely to have teachers with more experience.
mm-hmm.
And Dayton was the exception to the rule. They studied pretty much the larger districts in Ohio, and this was a national study. I don't think, we do not have it that bad as far as that goes now, and I don't think we would in the future. I mean, I don't think there's any reason in a district with the kind of demographic that we have to believe that it would be worse. Dayton doesn't have any wealthy districts,
Mm-hmm.
period. All of our schools have a very high percentage of poverty, as described by the percentage of children that qualify for free or reduced price lunches. There is marginal difference among the schools, but really, overall, all of Dayton has no wealthy districts. Some of the Big 8 districts do have that. Cincinnati does have I think Price Hill is within Cincinnati, and that's like their Oakwood is within their school district.
Yeah.
Columbus has some much better off districts. Dayton really doesn't have that.
We have
Cleveland
certain neighborhoods that are better off than other ones, certainly, and I guess that's where
you know what? Actually, in a lot of that, I do see that you can't drive through neighborhoods that look better.
Sure.
But as far as Dayton doesn't really have any real even in those neighborhoods that look better, like maybe Belmont. The people from Belmont that send their children to Dayton public schools, they're in apartments.
Mm-hmm.
They're really not the homeowners in Belmont. So they're like there's apartment complexes that go along Wilmington and in Schroyer Park. That's where the people with children going to Dayton public schools from Belmont are from. And otherwise, all the people, the nicer parts of the city of Dayton are really a lot of people who are retired or much older. There's not like a real heavily families with children nice area like Oakwood. Oakwood really is an area that's very heavily populated with families with children.
Okay. What can you do? Do you ever get to meet with officials in Washington or from Washington during any of your travels? To different functions. What do you do? At least personally, to lobby on the behalf of education when there's a lot of people in this country seem very discouraged by the levels of. Well, you can, if you've ever been to like the National Priorities Project.org, they put in great bar graphs. The military, prison is where this country is putting all their money in, and I don't need to tell you a little slice of the pie that education is getting.
Right. At the national level, I have been fortunate enough to be to participate in meetings with Sheriff Brown. And that's mostly because, really just because he has these, the phone, what do you call the group phone things?
It's like a bunch of people talking on the phone. Phone conference, yeah.
Phone conference, yes. I'm included on a phone conference. Really, it's because I'm gay. It's for LGBT statewide officials, or officials or leaders. I'm considered an LGBT leader. So because of that, I managed to get on the phone conversation with Sheriff Brown, and I get to, and although with Sheriff you are preaching to the choir, but I do get to try to make, emphasize the importance of the kinds of problems that a district like Dayton has.
And I know all too well exactly. I worked as a bus driver for years at Dayton Public. How do you feel about the issue of consolidation on a countywide of school districts, much in the line of regional government?
I do. I think it's misunderstood, and I think that could work, and I think it's worked for other areas. I do believe in it. I just don't have a lot of hope that it would happen. It's a state issue, and I just haven't seen. I mean, they just started to talk about it under this administration, and or to hint at the idea of consolidating just a few of the smaller districts. We have in the state of Ohio a lot of really small districts that probably don't need to be operating, and they got a lot of really big pushback from the school lobby. And so, but yeah, I mean, as a school board member, you could just imagine 610 districts.
Yeah, the resources that could be shared.
Exactly.
I think a lot about like the whole open source computer movement. I was also I've been involved in computers since I was like 15 years old, and putting together websites. We've done all kinds of computer type of work, and everyone is very open source. The whole open university movement seems to be taking off. But in public education, at least on a secondary elementary school type level, could we envision anything like that, or are we too embroiled in these?
There are.
I'm this over here. No, you're that over there.
Well, they're trying to share. They're trying to share a lot of expenses, and there are things set up. There's the count. We actually do have like the tools to do it. There is over on Kiwi Avenue. There's the county Board of Education. I forget the name of it. There is an agency that helps school districts within the county share resources, and some districts take advantage of that and some do not to the fullest extent.
As far as going forward, as a board member, what is your number one goal and emphasis? I mean, it's a rough time right now for Dayton Public Schools and urban districts, really all across the country. It's not, just Dayton Public who's running into this problem. It's the people everywhere. You can see, I've had discussions with my wife. I'm like, this wasn't like a problem just with like certain people, certain places brought things down. This economic decline has gone on. You can see it everywhere. It's not that,
I mean, as a school board member, my main focus really has to be the educational performance of my district, and that is what I'm focused on, really. The focus of our policy direction towards the administration of this school district is improving the performance, and that's going back to my no vote. I did not see that her cuts overall were within that focus of improving educational performance overall. So those, I mean, I understand that there is a bigger picture, but that is the focus, my focus.
Okay. Two last questions. They're kind of unrelated to this topic, but could we ever think about implementing something like teaching children the Socratic method? I've talked to a lot of teachers, and they're like, boy, that would alleviate a lot of my problems. If kids learned,
I mean, do you mean the Socratic method by
when I think of questioning?
Just questioning.
Yes.
Yeah, just asking. Yeah. And I think we could, but when it gets down to
they're so naturally inquisitive anyway.
Well, yeah, I mean that
gives it a way to channel that inquisitiveness.
Since I'm not in education, I'm an accountant by trade. Since I'm not an education professional, I do leave those questions up to our educational professionals. To be honest, I mean, the only other experience I have is as a student myself, and I do remember the courses that I took that were taught Socratically, and those are the ones where I learned the most. Yeah, and you really take off into other areas from there. It's such a great basis. Lastly, we have a big infusion of immigrants into Dayton. Children who don't speak English as a first language. And I know there's a lot of resources going in federally, federal funds to teach children in the district. And instead of viewing a lot of these kids as kids maybe we have to teach English to, which we do have, can we also use those children as a resource to help teach our children more languages? And actually, what you're suggesting is something I'm doing. Okay. Okay, with my daughter. She does have a Turkish babysitter, and she was chosen in part because, I mean, right now it's just every now and then just to get to know her during the summer. But once school starts, she's going to go to daycare, or she'll go, I'm sorry, it's called preschool. She's in daycare now. She'll move up to preschool since both me and my partner are working full-time. She'll be in preschool